The origin of Bani Israel dates back to the time of Prophet Abraham, peace be upon him. From his descendants came the 12 tribes of Bani Israel. They used to live in Jerusalem, but over time, they fled the city one by one. Why did that happen? And how did a Muslim community eventually establish its presence there? Why are the Jews now trying to reclaim and occupy Israel once again? Is it solely for religious reasons, or is there a deeper geopolitical agenda at play? And why has Iran, once a friend, now become Israel's fiercest enemy? We will try to explore the answers to these questions in today's video. Stay with us. Keep watching. This is cosmiSoul. The lineage of Bani Israel began during the time of Abraham, peace be upon him. His son Isaac and grandson Jacob, peace be upon them, who was also known as Israel, had 12 sons from whom the 12 tribes of Bani Israel descended. They once lived in Palestine and Jerusalem. One of the 12 sons of Jacob was named Judah, and it is from his name that the term Jew was later derived. They were monotheistic, believing in one God. In Jewish history, the 12 tribes once lived together in the ancient regions of Israel and Jerusalem. However, over time, they became divided. The first major split occurred in 922 BCE, after the death of Solomon, peace be upon him, when the kingdom was divided into two parts, Israel in the north and Judah in the south. The 10 tribes in the north formed the kingdom of Israel, while Judah and Benjamin remained in the south. In 722 BCE, the Assyrian Empire invaded northern Israel. The 10 tribes were defeated and scattered, and in history, they became known as the Lost 10 Tribes of Israel because they never returned as an organized group again. The next destruction came in 586 BCE when the Babylonian king Nebuchadnezzar attacked Jerusalem. He destroyed the city of Jerusalem and the first temple and took many people from the tribes of Judah and Benjamin captive to Babylon. In this way, the 12 tribes of the Jews were gradually expelled from Jerusalem, one after another. Then, a major rebellion began in 66 CE, known in history as the First Jewish-Roman War. This uprising was a reaction against religious persecution and political oppression. The Jews briefly regained control of Jerusalem, but the Roman Empire struck back. Finally, in 70 CE, under the leadership of General Titus, the Roman army destroyed Jerusalem. The sacred Second Temple of the Jews was demolished, an event that remains a deep wound in their history to this day. But it didn't end there. The Jews revolted a second time in 132 CE, known as the Bar Kokhba Revolt. Although it was initially successful, the Romans eventually crushed it with brutal force. Hundreds of thousands of Jews were killed, and many of them were forcibly expelled from the region of Palestine. Palestine, the land that the Quran refers to as the Holy Land. The arrival of Muslims in the 7th century during the early days of Islam. After the passing of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, in 637 CE, during the time of Islam's second caliph, Hazrat Umar, the Muslim army captured Jerusalem from the Byzantine Empire. The expedition was led by the Muslim commander Hazrat Abu Ubaidah. The Christian rulers of Jerusalem, as a condition for surrender, requested that Umar himself come and make the treaty. He came to Jerusalem dressed simply, riding on the back of a camel, becoming a symbol of truth, justice, and humility. Through a peaceful agreement with the Christians, the Muslims took responsibility for Jerusalem, and soon after, one of Islam's most important landmarks, the Al-Aqsa Mosque, was established, which is not merely a mosque, but a spiritual center deeply connected to the hearts of Muslims. Under Muslim rule, Palestine was a place of religious coexistence, a shining center of knowledge and civilization. Islam brought not only victory, but also a new example of justice and tolerance. This marked the beginning of the arrival of Muslims in Palestine. During World War II, Nazi leader Adolf Hitler wanted to wipe out the Jewish people from the earth. From 1939 to 1945, under Hitler's orders, more than 6 million Jews were killed. This genocide became known in history as the Holocaust, which means complete destruction. After the war, millions of Jewish refugees scattered across Europe were left hopeless and directionless. It was then that an old dream arose to have their own state, and at that time, their target became Palestine. The British were then controlling Palestine. For a long time, through the worldwide Zionist movement, the Jews had been demanding the establishment of a state there. Finally, in 1948, driven by the intense emotions from the Holocaust and Western sympathy, the State of Israel was established. But in this story of resettlement, there was a deep opposing truth. At that time, Arab Muslims lived in Palestine, whose lands and homes were seized to begin Jewish settlements. A nation's struggle for survival rising from the tragic history of Jewish genocide and, at the same time, the expulsion of another nation. This dual reality has made Middle Eastern politics the most complex and blood-stained to this day. For the formation of this state, nearly 700,000 Muslim Palestinians were expelled. More than 500 villages were destroyed. This event is called by the Palestinians the Nakba, meaning catastrophe. Their homes, lands, and even their ancestors' graves were seized, and Israel established settlements. Thus began the Jewish-Muslim conflict. On September 13, 1993, at the White House in Washington, a historic peace agreement known as the Oslo Accords was signed between PLO leader Yasser Arafat and Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin. This agreement was a promise of peace, but in reality, it was a political drama. Even after the agreement, Israel continued building settlements in the West Bank, maintained military patrols and blockades. Later, the 2000 Camp David talks and the 2007 Annapolis Conference also failed because Israel never truly accepted an independent Palestinian state. In 2006, when Hamas won the elections, Israel and the West refused to recognize the outcome. Since 2007, Gaza has been under blockade by land, sea, and air. Gaza has turned into the world's largest open-air prison. Due to lack of food, water, and medical care, helpless people are dying every day. After that, one military operation after another was launched on Gaza, and it continues to this day. Israel claims it is acting in self-defense, but in reality, hundreds of children, women, and innocent Muslim civilians are being killed. Many resolutions have been brought to the United Nations, but the United States has repeatedly used its veto power to protect Israel. Global human rights organizations have repeatedly stated that Israel is operating an apartheid regime, yet Israel has continued its occupation and destruction. Why did Britain choose Palestine for the resettlement of Israel? Why does America still blindly support Israel? What do you think? Is it merely a religious reason, or is something else being carried out under the cover of religion? Religiously, there is no way to deny the significance of Palestine, especially Jerusalem. It is the only region on earth that holds sacred sites for the world's three major religions: Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. And it is by exploiting this religious significance that Britain, Europe, and America are deceiving the entire world. They know that this is a region which, if kept under control, will not only strengthen their economy, but also ensure that the Muslim world can never rise with dignity. For this, they have had to implement many strategic plans. The first plan was implemented in 1920, right after World War I, when Britain took control of the Ottoman Empire. The reason was that the Ottomans were Muslims, and they were gradually becoming a threat to Europe and America. The second plan, when they saw that the Arabs had become rich in oil, they realized it wasn't just about financial prosperity. It was only a matter of time before global power shifted into Arab hands. At that moment, they built friendly relations with the Arab nations. The Arabs had no technology for oil extraction. The West offered to extract the oil for them. As huge amounts of money started flowing into Arab hands, they lured them into luxury and extravagance. Then, one by one, they established military bases in Arab countries and created internal rivalries among the Gulf nations. As a result, the Arab Muslims, who were once like brothers, became enemies due to arrogance born from wealth and power. Iraq, Egypt, Libya, and Syria did not fall into this trap of Britain and America. Although Egypt, Libya, and Syria are all located in North Africa, geopolitically they are just as important as the Gulf nations. However, their tragic fate in the years that followed needs no elaboration. And the third plan for Middle Eastern geopolitics, the most critical objective is the control of the Mediterranean Sea. This region contains the world-famous Suez Canal, which is extremely important for international trade. It connects Asia, Europe, and Africa. Especially for Europe, the majority of food, gas, and fuel is transported through the Suez Canal. So, it is clear that whoever controls this region will, indirectly, be able to control Europe and America. Even if the Arab League failed to realize this, America and the Europeans certainly understood it well. The question is, if the Arab countries unite, can they strategically pressure Europe by controlling the Mediterranean region? The answer is yes, they can, but under certain conditions. What are those conditions? Lebanon, Syria, Libya, Algeria, Tunisia, and Morocco all are Mediterranean coastal countries. The Arab nations hold about 50% of the world's oil reserves. With this power, they could exert pressure on Europe through energy, ports, and trade routes if they choose to. Here's an example to make the point clearer. In 1973, the Arab nations once used this weapon, turning oil into a political tool. When Israel again occupied Palestinian and Arab territories, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and several other countries stopped exporting oil to the West. The results: severe energy crisis in Europe, a crash in the US economy, and oil prices skyrocketed. Now imagine if the Arab states unite again. Egypt shuts down the Suez Canal. Libya and Algeria stop supplying gas to Europe. Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, and Qatar suspend oil exports. Then what? A massive energy crisis would erupt in Europe, their economies would collapse, and the West could be forced to stop Israel's aggression. But in reality, this is not happening because of a lack of unity, fear, and the politics of holding on to power. The Mediterranean Sea, oil, and the Suez Canal, all of these are still immense sources of power for the Arab and North African countries. But to use this power, what is needed is unity, courage, and accountability to the people. As long as the Arab states do not truly stand for justice, the suffering of the Palestinians will continue, and Europe and America will carry out aggression without fear. The reasons behind Britain and America wanting control over this region are clear. But what about the intentions of the Jews? Why do they want to seize Jerusalem or Palestine, even through so much conflict and violence? Their reason is entirely religious. According to Jewish belief, nearly 3,000 years ago, Prophet Solomon, peace be upon him, by the command of God, built the first house of worship or temple here, which is known as the First Temple. In 586 BCE, the first temple was destroyed by Babylonian king Nebuchadnezzar, and in 70 CE, the Roman army under General Titus demolished the second temple. Jews believe that the very presence of God exists within this temple. Even today, at a remaining part of the temple, the Western Wall, millions of Jews cry and pray. Jerusalem is mentioned hundreds of times in their scriptures, the Torah and the Talmud. In their daily prayers, they face toward Jerusalem. They believe that one day the Mahdi or Messiah will come, and right in this place, the third temple will be rebuilt. And that is why, religiously, Jerusalem is so important to the Jews. And it is this religious blind belief that Europe and America are exploiting for their own geopolitical gain. Now let's talk about Israel and Iran. The country we know today as Israel's greatest enemy, Iran, was once one of Israel's closest allies. It all started in 1948, right after the establishment of the State of Israel. At that time, Iran was a monarchy under the rule of Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi. Iran was not Islamic, but rather pro-Western. They had oil, arms, and secret intelligence agreements with Israel. Can you imagine? Arms and intelligence agreements. A country can only make such deals with another when there is a high level of friendship or trust between them. Iran was one of the few Muslim countries that, even if not publicly, had acknowledged the existence of Israel. The entire scenario changed with the Islamic Revolution in Iran in 1979. The Shah was overthrown, and an Islamic republic came to power under the leadership of Ayatollah Khomeini. The new government called Israel the State of Satan, declared Israel and America as enemies of Islam. They shut down the Israeli embassy and opened a Palestinian embassy in its place. Since then, Iran-Israel relations have stood on the battlefield of a proxy war. Iran supported the Palestinian group Hamas, Lebanon's Hezbollah, and the Assad regime in Syria. Israel labeled these groups as terrorists and identified Iran as the biggest threat in the Middle East. Israel has repeatedly launched secret cyber attacks and assassinated scientists to destroy Iran's nuclear program. And Iran has declared Israel is an illegitimate state that must be wiped off the map. June 12, 2025. In the darkness of night, the air over the Middle East carries the scent of war. Israel launches a silent yet deadly covert mission. Target Iran's top minds in military and nuclear power. In the cover of night, a series of secret assassinations takes place, including Iran's Army Chief of Command, high-ranking military officers, and key nuclear scientists. Analysts say behind this attack is Mossad, Israel's notorious intelligence agency. The operation was carried out from inside Syria and the Kurdish region. Within days of the June 12 covert attack that killed Iran's top military officials, Iran launched a fierce retaliation. Directly, it fired missiles striking Israel's military bases and northern regions with intensity. The attack began on the night of June 16th at 1:40 a.m. More than 30 ballistic missiles and drones were launched simultaneously from western Iran. Targets Israel's northern military bases in Haifa, Safed, and the Golan Heights. Although Israel's Iron Dome missile defense system intercepted and destroyed several missiles in the sky, Israel still suffered significant damage from the attack. However, neither side has officially revealed the extent of their losses. A statement from Iran declared, "We have responded in the same place where our scientists' blood was shed. Every act of aggression will be answered with blood." This message was not just for Israel, it served as a stark warning to the entire region. Sadly, although most Arab Gulf nations have not openly taken sides in the conflict, Jordan and Syria have directly supported Israel by intercepting Iranian missiles aimed at Israel in their airspace and by allowing Israel's Air Force to use their skies to strike back at Iran. As always, the United States and the European Union have blamed Iran and expressed support for Israel's right to self-defense. An emergency session was called at the United Nations, but no effective solution has yet been reached. Analysts say this retaliatory strike is just the beginning, and it has brought the entire Middle East, along with the rest of the world, to the brink of another world war. It doesn't take much to realize that this crisis in the Middle East will not find a solution soon. The only real solution lies in unity for the Middle East and all Muslim countries to set aside greed, envy, conflict, and division, to stand together against Western aggression and imperialism. Or, if global political leaders could understand this simple truth, religion is for humans, not humans for religion. Without peace and the protection of humanity, true development is never possible. If the world today embraces this wisdom and chooses the path of tolerance and dialogue, then and only then will lasting peace come to the Middle East, and the ominous signs of a third world war will fade. This responsibility does not lie with the Arabs or the Middle East alone. It is the responsibility of the entire world, because peace is in everyone's interest and is the only path to the triumph of humanity. Let us know in the comments what you thought of our video. If you liked it, we kindly ask you to give it a like. Stay well, safe. Until then, goodbye. See you in the next video.